Welcome to the Well Woman Show, where we interview women executives, leaders, and entrepreneurs.
And you're listening to the Well Woman Show,
where motivated women achieve fulfillment and well-being.
You're listening to the Well Woman Show.
Take time for myself by coming to things like Well Woman Drinks.
To be accepting of myself no matter what. Step away from judgment as much as possible.
You're listening to the Well Woman Show.
You're going to be in for a good ride. I don't regret anything. Everything I've ever done, I've learned from it, one way or another, good or bad.
Being a little bit selfish for yourself, put your own oxygen mask on first and then give what's left.
I'm a woman. I would prefer to tell my own story. My story, though it's very personal, is universal.
You're listening to the Well Woman Show. And now your host, Giovanna Rossi.
Hi, Giovanna Rossi here, and welcome to another episode of the Well Woman Show, where I interview women leaders, executives, and entrepreneurs about their lives and their road to becoming and being who they are today. Do you ever find yourself overwhelmed with your responsibilities and it seems like you'll never get it all done? Well, you're not alone. We all need to remember to use our superpowers, the ones we already have but we don't use all the time, and take advice and wisdom from one another. Toward the end of the show, in a segment called Superpowers for Success, I ask my guest about her superpowers, and the answers will give you strength, perspective, and the power to keep on being the well woman you are. I'm so happy you're here, so thanks for tuning in. Today's topic is leadership through listening, and hopefully by the end of the show, you'll be inspired to incorporate more listening into your leadership style, examine your own leadership tendencies, and start using our guest's time management tips. My guest today is Tamara Thorpe, life guide, leadership expert, organizational development consultant, and founder of the Millennials Mentor. Today I'm going to talk to Tamara about using listening as a tool for better leadership and deeper connections, managing time for greater efficiency and productivity, and determining a sense of identity for better communication. The free giveaway today is Tamara's Craft Your Leadership Identity Worksheet. Listeners can download it at wellwomanlife.com/022show. I like the worksheet because it helps you determine what you value in a leader, what kind of leader you want to be, and what you can do to get there. But before we get started, I want to thank our sponsor today, Leafy Greens. They provide seasonal cleanses and nutrition consultations. Leah is the owner, and she does an awesome 21-day cleanse. And you can visit wellwomanlife.com/leafygreens to sign up and get a special Well Woman discount. Now for my interview with Tamara Thorpe. I'm speaking with Tamara Thorpe. Welcome to the program.
Hi, thank you. I'm really glad to be here.
Oh, good. Well, Tamara, I've already done a little bit of an introduction of you, but tell us what you're working on and how it impacts women's lives and well-being.
Well, I think of myself in several roles. I am a wife, an entrepreneur, and an activist. So my days really make up a combination of tending to my business and my family and the community. In my work, I create leadership training programs for millennial leaders and help organizations leverage their multi-generational workforce. And so that really involves creating both online programs and delivering face-to-face trainings and consulting. And so as a solopreneur, I have a lot of flexibility in my schedule, which is one of the reasons that I love being a solopreneur, and that I can create my own schedule, but it also gives me the flexibility to sort of juggle those multiple roles that I have, perhaps more than having a traditional job, so that in all those roles that I have, I'm able to give back both to young women in my work creating leadership training programs and in my work as an activist with the organizations that I'm involved in here locally.
Okay. And I love that you started off by telling us the 3 areas of your life that you juggle, because what we talk a lot about in Well Woman Life is the fact that we have all of these multiple roles that we're juggling as women in our personal or family life, our professional life, and then in the community. So that really resonates, I think, with our listeners. And just to kind of dig into what you were talking about a little bit, how are millennial leaders, how is your work with millennial leaders different from your work with other leaders?
Well, it's an interesting thing because when I first started my business in 2006, I was working with, for all intents and purposes, all leaders. But really the result of that was that I was doing a lot of work in the nonprofit and academic sectors and working with my peers and perhaps more often people who were older than myself. And after a few years, despite, a lot of success I was having, I was really finding that the work wasn't fulfilling and that I was finding myself very often more frustrated with my work than fulfilled. And it was really evident to me that as an entrepreneur, there is no reason to put all the energy into running and operating your own business if you're not happy. And so I really tried to tap into where are the times in my life where I'm feeling fulfilled and finding joy and finding myself really connected to the things that I'm passionate about. And through that process, it really became evident to me that when I am working with young professionals and I'm working with young leaders, that there is a reciprocity in that knowledge sharing that made the work more fulfilling. And so I really wanted to build a platform where young leaders who are hungry and want to learn have a space to do that. And so for me, I think one of the biggest differences between millennials and more seasoned leaders is that millennials are hungry and they're ambitious and they want the knowledge so that they can be better as leaders now, not 20 years from now.
Yeah, they're like, let's do it. They're ready. They want to learn. That's interesting. And what about the difference for you between men and women in terms of sharing your, doing your work with leaders with men and women? Do you do more work with men or women or both?
I think I see a nice balance of both. I just recently got an opportunity to spend a day with a room full of women leaders, and that was fantastic. I think that what I find with women leaders is that they face different barriers that men don't. And so that when I'm working with young women leaders, sometimes the discussion is around how they not just overcome those barriers, but sometimes in situations negotiate them. Unfortunately, there is still, we know that there's not only pay inequity, but there's, that women are really treated differently in the workplace, and more often that's unfairly. Women are still faced with being subjected to sexist comments. And when I work with young women leaders and they tell me some of the things that men say to them in the workplace, it's still really, really astounding. And so when I do work with women leaders, helping them sort of, how do you, respond to a sexist comment? How do you overcome some of those institutionalized gender barriers? And I think that is probably one of the most common things that I hear from young women leaders.
Yeah, definitely. Well, do you have tools that you use with women leaders that are slightly different, or like a different set of, questions or that you do with women because of those things?
I don't know that it's a different set of tools, but it's using those tools for different scenarios. And so when I talk about communication and different communication strategies around a topic that I talk about a lot when I work with leaders is about listening deeply. And listening deeply is a really, really powerful tool that really allows you to build effective relationships, resolve conflict, and it's an opportunity that allows you to be more curious and offensive rather than defensive. And so quite commonly when one of the things that I share with women is, when you're subjected to comments, that the best response very often is no response or a question. And asking people why they say the things that they do, and really listening and giving people the opportunity to think about why they say the things that they do. And I think that it can be a really powerful tool, because most often, our first knee-jerk response is to be defensive, and while rightfully so, there's always a time and a place, I think, to tell someone off.
Well,
that more often than not, when you're looking to preserve a relationship, there's a lot of power in listening.
Yeah, definitely. I always tell people, and I try to implement this myself, that what people say is about them, not about you.
Yeah.
So if you can kind of have that in your mind, when someone says something, you can just immediately, it's almost like a shield or a guard. You can just deflect the comment, because you're like, oh, that's interesting that you said that. That's really about you, isn't it? And your thing, not my thing. So it's a really good tool.
Yeah.
Tamara, describe a time in your life when you didn't put yourself first, when you weren't taking care of yourself the way you probably know now you need to, as a woman, as a professional, as a community activist.
There have probably been several times in my life that I wasn't putting myself or taking care of myself. But if I had to really think about a particular time, it was probably about 10 years ago when my stepdaughter, as a young adult, moved back home. And I was really committed to helping her develop the skills that she needed to be independent. And so I was doing a lot of parenting. I was doing a lot of coaching with her, while also trying to be an entrepreneur and be an activist. And I was still very involved in my community. And we were also doing all of this while we were living abroad in Canada. And so there was a lot of, I don't know if it's a term, but it was sort of a lot of implicit stress, right? That these were just sort of like day-to-day things that were going on, and it really built up over time. And it really, after a certain period of time, I realized that I was really feeling fatigued and overwhelmed and not very happy. I gained a lot of weight, and it sort of was this really weird time where, in my effort to really support her and equip her with the tools she needed, that I really wasn't taking care of myself. And so I really had to kind of take a step back and find, a place and space where I could refocus my energy back towards myself and have more balance. And I was fortunate in that time to have a really good support system and to have a couple of really great mentors who helped me kind of get back on track and find more balance.
God, that's so important, because things like that happen in our lives can really throw a curveball, and it can affect your health and the way that you perform at work. And so having those things that you do in order to be resilient are so important. So for you, that was surrounding yourself with support.
Absolutely, it was, and then using the tools that support system was providing. So one of my mentors at the time kind of sat down with me and said, well, how are you managing your time? And I realized that I didn't have a very good time management system that I was using to balance all of those roles and responsibilities. And so he, provided me with the time block model that, I've been using for the last 10 years that really helps me manage my time.
Can you explain?
Sure.
Yeah, just real quick for the listeners.
So time blocking means you sort of break the day up into blocks of time, and then each of those blocks has a category. So you might have one block of time that's work, family, another that's family, another that's community, whatever those commitments are that you have. And you can even break those up into smaller bits depending upon what's going on. And then you just set that block of time aside to do those things. We have a tendency to multitask. And so as a result of trying to do everything at once, you have a tendency then to not really get as much done. So I set aside, from 8 to 10 a.m. in the morning, I do email. And that's all I do. From 10 to 12, it might be writing, and that's what I do. So, and so then if things come up that are where you have to maybe change that block of time, then you just switch one block of time with another block of time. So rather than taking something completely off your schedule, you just move it to another time block. And that way you sort of keep all your tasks on your agenda, and then it really allows you to focus on doing one thing at a time.
Yeah, I love the time blocking. You have been using it, but it's a challenge to keep it going when you have so many exceptions to the rule.
Yes.
you know, but it's a really great model. And Tamara, while we're on the topic of tools and things, why don't you explain or give us a couple of things that you talk about in your leadership coaching? I know that you're offering our listeners your free Craft Your Leadership Identity worksheet, which is awesome. People can download that with the links that I'm going to give at the end. But can you talk us through that worksheet?
Absolutely. So I have a leadership training called Real Leadership, and it's available on my website, and it's a completely 100% DIY online course that individuals can take, where I introduce my 5 steps to leadership. And that first step is identity. And I start with identity because I believe what the first and biggest mistake that every leader makes is they start leading without taking time to really identify what it means for them to be a leader. When I first led a team, I was really young, but I was, the first time I was in a paid professional position of leadership, I was really young and I ruled with an iron fist. Our first sort of thinking when you think about it is I'm the boss, and leadership means I'm the boss, and so we're just automatically bossy. And I was just really bossy and really ineffective. So I, over time, really had to kind of sit back and say, no, what kind of leader do I want to be? What's the impact that I want to have on people? And how will I be able to demonstrate that in my behavior as a leader? So I put together this activity that allows individuals to sit down and really identify what is it that I believe about leadership, right? What's my purpose as a leader? Then what are my strengths as a leader? And that's something that you can really say, here are the areas where I'm strong, or these are the things that people always come to me for. And then put that together with the impact that you want to have. So you look at your purpose, your strengths, and your desired impact, and you put those together into your leadership identity. And I try to walk people through, you can either put it in a sentence, or you could find a song lyric or a poem or 2 sentences you write on your own, but that really capture your leadership identity. And then you share that with the people that you lead. Every time I sit down with the team and I say to them, I want you all to know that my role as a leader is for you to be better for having known me. That's my leadership identity, for people to be better for having known me. And I use that in all the decision making that I do as a leader. So when I have to make choices as a leader, I say to myself, is this decision in alignment with who I said I am as a leader? And so it becomes something that you can use to guide your decision making, something that you can use so that your team knows where you're coming from. And it's a really, really powerful way to start your leadership with that strong leadership identity.
I love it. Okay, I'm speaking with Tamara Thorpe, and she is a millennial coach, and she's offering us her free Craft Your Leadership Identity worksheet. And Tamara, we're moving into a segment called Superpowers for Success. And so I want to ask you several questions, and we're just going to kind of go quickly through them to get through it all. The first question is, what does success in life mean for you?
For me, success is being happy and well. So if I'm happy and my life is going well, then I feel successful.
Okay. When did you know you were really good at what you do?
I think that's one of those weird things that I feel like I've always known what I'm really good at, yet I never know what I'm really good at. It's a catch-22. I think from a very young age, leadership came very naturally to me, but it really probably wasn't until my 30s that I thought, this is something that I'm really good at. And yet sometimes I find myself, I'm leading teams and I think, wow, this is still hard. And so it's something that I tell people. Leadership it's a journey, not a destination.
But was there a time when you were on stage speaking to a lot of people, or, in a meeting, or you got some news where you just had a quiet moment with yourself and thought, I am awesome. I am in the right place, and this is great.
Yeah, I think very early in my career, I started out as a teacher, and I realized probably 2 or 3 years into my teaching career, standing, like you said, in front of a class and sort of having this out-of-body experience, where I realized, sort of being in front of people and talking was a really comfortable place for me. And so that's, I think, really how my career evolved, where I thought, okay, teaching is one thing, but it's not everything. And so how do I get more of this experience, which I think I also had at, and I think that's continued to evolve. Last fall, I was able to speak at a TEDx event, and I remember being on stage also kind of having this outer body experience, thinking, yeah, this is what I'm doing great. I think I'm killing it, and I feel really good.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think for listeners, the takeaway here, or at least for me, is, to really listen to that quiet voice that says, this feels good, this feels right. And then try to identify what is it about that situation that you're feeling awesome about, and apply that to what you want to do in your business or in your life or at work. And so next question, we only have a few more minutes, and I wanted to ask you, describe, or actually, what superpower did you discover you had only to realize it was there all the time?
I think for me, if I had to think about it, I think being a good friend is something that I have learned over time was something that I'm not sure when I was younger that I thought or I understood the power of having and being a good friend. But now, particularly in the last year and specifically the last 6 months, not only have I been blessed by having some amazing friends support me, but then also being in the position to support other friends going through some very difficult times, and realizing that it comes easy to care for other people. And I'm not sure that was something that I always knew I could do or that I knew I was doing. But certainly now it's something I'm much more conscious of, and understanding how powerful that can be.
Yeah. And Tamara, what are you reading right now? What is on your nightstand?
On my nightstand is actually Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen.
Oh, nice.
This year I'm doing a 12-book challenge. Pride and Prejudice was the biggest one, and so it's the first one that I'm still working with. But I'm getting close to the end, and it's my first Jane Austen book, and I'm enjoying it.
Okay. And then what advice would you give your younger self, like your 25 or 30-year-old self?
Um, 25 to 30 was an interesting time for me. A lot was changing in my life, and I think it was a time in my life where all the pieces were coming together for me, and it was really a full integration of my values and my choices, and I was learning to be more patient and to listen and to love myself and others more deeply. I think if I had to give advice to that version of myself, it might be to continue to do the hard work, because the things that you have to work hard for are far more wonderful than those things that come easy. So knowing that life is a series of peaks and valleys, and the hard work makes it all worth it.
Do you think your work with millennials, do you think you have to emphasize that piece a lot with millennials? I mean, do they want everything to be easy, or are they willing to work hard?
I think millennials are incredibly hard workers. They just work differently, right? And I think millennials have really gotten a bad rap.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. They've gotten a really bad rap that they want to do things, they want the easy way. But because the truth is there's easier ways to do things, and they want to use those tools so that they can actually be more effective and more productive. A lot of us older folks are kind of stuck in our old ways of doing things, and the truth is there's a lot of tools and resources out there to simplify some of those processes so that we can use our time more effectively and more efficiently, and that's what they're really aiming for.
Okay, and Tamara, describe a personal habit that contributes to your well-being. How do you stay well in order to do all of the things you do? You are an amazing community person. You're an entrepreneur. You're doing TEDx talks. You're really out there. How do you do that? Or just give us an example of one thing that contributes to your well-being.
For me, I have really strong boundaries with my work. And what that means is I work, not that there aren't exceptions, but generally as a whole, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 o'clock. And 5 o'clock, when my husband comes home for work, it's family time. No emails, no phone, nothing. And I don't answer personal phone calls. I don't answer work calls. After 5 o'clock, it's family time. And so I think that helps for me. I think that is a habit that has allowed me to stay balanced, that I give the same level of time commitment to my family that I do to work and the community.
Yeah, that's so important, because you really have to decide what your priority is. And we may say our family is our priority, but then we take, emails and phone calls while we're supposed to be doing family time. So we intend to give our full focus to when we're in our family time, but it's really hard. So how do you do that? You literally just go and put your phone in the drawer and walk away.
It's done, right? Like I literally, it's all turned off, right? I hear the keys at the door. That's family time. I go, the computer's off, my phone's in the other room, and then I spend time with my family, whether we talk, whether we cook together, whether we go for walks or go out to dinner. It's family time. And from time to time, a few times a month, I might have a community meeting in the evening. So it's not that there's no exceptions, but when people ask me, are you free? Can we schedule something? That goes back to my time block system. If you want to have a meeting with me, generally speaking, it's going to be Tuesday to Thursday from 1 to 5 p.m. That's it. And so I schedule that in my time block. I actually have time blocks in my schedule that is called people.
Yeah. No, I do that too. You've got to do it. Otherwise, you're spread too thin. Tamara, it's been wonderful talking with you today. Thank you so much for being on the program.
Thank you for having me. It has been a joy.
That's it for our show today. I've been speaking with Tamara Thorpe, life guide, leadership expert, organizational development consultant, and founder of the Millennials Mentor. I spoke with Tamara about listening as a tool for better leadership and deeper connections, managing time for greater efficiency and productivity, and determining a sense of identity for better communication. You can get Tamara's Craft Your Leadership Identity worksheet for free at wellwomanlife.com/022show. Our monthly live event, Well Woman Drinks, brings women together to share our successes and challenges as women leaders, moms, aunts, sisters, and all of the other hats we wear. If you'd like to attend a Well Woman Drinks near you, or if there isn't one in your city yet and you'd like to start one, email me at info@wellwomanlife.com. If you enjoyed the show, please take a moment and subscribe in iTunes and leave a review. This really helps raise visibility for the show, which helps other women who may be looking for a show like this to find it. You can also continue the conversation in the Well Woman Life community group at facebook.com/groups/Well Woman Life community. For feedback, comments, or just to let me know you were listening today, find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Well Woman Life. I'm Giovanna Rossi for The Well Woman Show. Until next time, have a super powerful week.